Hey friends, wandering pastor out here in the woods where I love to be, out in the forest. My body just drinks this in. I just love being out here. But I'm out here today to start a series, kind of a new thing I'm doing. And it comes from this. It comes from this question that we share with our people. I have a question. We just finished a series on being prepared for the end times. And I encouraged people to write questions they had after that series. Were there things that they needed to know about, or things that maybe even their friends asked? And so I'm going to start to do my best to try to answer some of those questions. Now, I have to say this. Whenever you talk about the end times, I feel like we need to approach it with a certain degree of humility. There is a lot of stuff written in the scriptures about the end times. I believe there is anyway, and yet nobody, I don't think, has a corner on the market on exact interpretation. And so we try to do our best, but we do it with humility, realizing that God has some mysteries that he leaves for us, and we have to trust him. And the best way to get ready for the end times, or for living till our own end, is to prepare our hearts for the Lord and to worship him. And so that's one of the things, that will overarch all of these little videos, is that all of it is done with a degree of humility that says, I don't know all of this exactly, and the Lord does. And so we try to learn, we try to prepare, but that's kind of the spirit you need to take this in. So one question that comes up from the very beginning for many people that have asked it is, why should we even care about specifics about the end times? Should we care? Is it right to care? Because didn't Jesus say no one knows the day or the hour? And not even the Son of Man? And if he doesn't know the day or the hour, who are we to think that we would? And isn't that the ultimate in arrogance? And that's a very good question. It's a very common question, but I think it doesn't quite get the context of what Jesus said. So I wanted to share with you a little bit, and I'll see if I can do that without dropping my Bible or my phone. Share with you a little bit from Matthew chapter 24. This is one of the key passages that people cite when they're talking about this. Jesus says, "Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all of these things," all the things he's talked about elsewhere in chapter 24 of the book of Matthew, "you know that his return is very near. It is right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all of these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear." Okay, so he's talking about the seasons, that he says when you start to see some of these events, the things he's talked about, the wars, the pestilences, the diseases, the violence, the hatred, the love of many growing cold, the people being turned over to authorities because of their stubborn reliance on their faith, that kind of a thing, then you will know that it's that season. That's what he's saying so far. But here's the verse that most people talk about. Verse 36, the very next verse, he says, "However, no one knows the day or the hour when these things will happen. Not even the angels in heaven nor the Son himself, only the Father knows." And he says, when the Son of Man returns, it'll be like in the days of Noah, when people were eating and drinking and preparing in marriage and doing all their things, and then they thought everything was fine, and suddenly disaster came upon them when the flood came. And he says it'll be in that day, like it'll be sudden. If you're not looking for it, if you're not prepared for it, it will be sudden. But again, he says, so you too must keep watch. Verse 42, "For you don't know the day your Lord is coming. So you also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when he is least expected." So the point, I think, Jesus is making is that we need to be ready. We need to be looking for his return. His return is guaranteed. He said, in my Father's house are many rooms. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, you can be sure that I will come back and receive you to myself, so that you will be always with me where I am. So he is coming back at some point. Are we in those days? Well, maybe. And that's kind of what we'll talk about over the next few sessions. But what I wanted you to know the first one, is that it is important that we know the seasons, the timing, the general things that are going on. And we be aware of how that might be pointing to the fact that we are near the end times, that we are near the last days. And if we are, then of course we better be ready. Now, some might say, yeah, but people have been saying that forever. And that's another whole topic that we'll talk about later on. But let me just say this. If there is an end of days, and if there was the beginning and then there is an end, and Jesus seems to say, yes, there is an end. If there is an end of days, then we better be ready for it. We at least better be understanding what to look for. And if we don't live that long, that is, if you and I aren't around at the end of days, then we still better be ready for our end of days. So we better understand what it means to be prepared for our end and looking for his return for us, even if it's not for the entire race of humanity. So we'll talk about more things in the future, but I wanted you to know that this is a valid thing to talk about. This is an important thing to know and to be prepared for. So I hope that God uses these things to help you prepare your heart for him in faith, in obedience, in love, and all of those things, okay? All right, thanks. We'll talk to you again soon. For now, saying Wandering Pastor, saying peace.